So namaste again to everyone. Good evening. We will now start with the three verses of the eighth chapter. So initially, we were talking about the universality of the self. So this segment, starting from seventh to the 12th chapters, actually focus on the bhakti aspect. The initial six chapters looked at the karma aspect, the karma yoga, and we saw how we can get identified with the self through selfless activities. Now, to really engage in selfless activities that way, your mind has to be prepared. So the second stage is talking about, it is not a stage actually in the sense of development, but in the scripture of the Bhagavad-Gita, it is the second stage, which is talking about the bhakti aspect, which is about how you actually start connecting with that self so that selflessness becomes a habit. Karma Yoga talked about selflessness in action, but how do you actually make it a habit? For that, you need to actually start connecting with the self. You should have the love of the self, the bhakti of the self. That bhakti is, we can call it as inspiration, the inner, what you call motivation, inner motivation. Inspiration that really makes you to engage in actions in a selfless manner. So, to engage in selfless actions, we need to have bhakti. And therefore, now Krishna is shifting here to tell us that the self is universal. It is everywhere. And within you also the self is residing, because self is infinite and universal. There is definitely no place that the self can be hidden, because it is the right, and you are actually floating in self. You are being powered by that self then. So within the body, mind and intellect, which is enlivened by the self, we are acting. And now it is that mind which the self enlivens that you have to use so that it gets you connected to the self. That is the trick. The self enlivens your BMI, and the mind and intellect, which actually is enlivened thus, will need to be used to understand the self and connect with it. So that infinite loop is basically what we are all facing every day. And that is the reason why we sometimes feel that I am not able to comprehend that self, because it is beyond my mind. That is what our philosophy says. If it's something that is beyond your mind, how can you comprehend? Because it is beyond the mind. Mind is something that deals with the objects of the world, the objective things. Starting from your own mind and intellect is an object, because it is a result of your physical thing, which is given to you by nature, the brain, and that functions and creates the software called the intellect and the mind. And then it starts functioning through your hardware, which is the pranas, the physiological systems, activating your metabolism, digestion, and all those things, and then giving you the energy, creating energy from within you to help you to actually start thinking creatively, productively, and to work in this world. So those are all objective stuff. The way the mind works, the intellect works, and the body works. And you are able to grasp that because, yes, the starting point is the mind intellect, and we are able to therefore rationally think about what is happening in the outside, the projected consciousness, the consciousness that gets projected into the outer world from within. And that consciousness actually originated as what is called as prajna. That is the spark of the infinite within us. But that spark then gets tied to the senses and the mind, and then makes us think and work, physically engage in actions in the physical world. So this is the mechanism which Krishna is trying to explain. And these things are the lower things. That's what the 7th chapter said. But the higher thing that is enlivening you is the self. And that self is in everyone. It is the same. It is infinite. It is eternal. It is the same in everyone. There is no difference. The difference comes in the apparatus, the intellect, mind, and the body, which is the lower thing. So that was the 7th chapter. Now, therefore, we should understand my body, mind, and intellect, or intellect, mind, and body in the reverse order. The intellect, mind, and the body are powered by that self. Therefore, I should start using that intellect and mind to, recognize that self as the power which is giving it the power to think, the power to feel, and then the power to sense for the body. So the second step now is for us to realize that this self is not only universal, it is imperishable. In the sense that it is, since it is eternal and since it is infinite, it is also imperishable. There is no birth and death kind of cycles for this. So you are not going to die anytime. You are there always. You are there now and you will always be there. With that confidence, if you can actually attach your intellect to rationalize that process of the infinite enlivening you and that you are the infinite, really, if you can rationalize that, that is, the intellect can absorb that and then start feeling your absoluteness with your mind, that is bhakti. So the second step of Krishna is to explain that I am that imperishable self within you. The infinite existence, or if you look at the screen, the shared screen, you can see that the infinite existence becomes the Atman within us. That infinite becomes the individual existence within me, which is there is no demarcation there. It is for that reference of the physical body, we call it as the Atman. And combining with the physical things, it becomes the Jiva, the body, mind, and intellect. Energized, the whole unit becomes the Jiva, the individual within us, the individual that we all are. The moment we are a Jiva, it is the infinite existence becomes a limited existence because it is confined in a physical space, the Jiva, which is, we have the name and shape, form and name, etc. And we are also actually controlled by the physical properties of nature. Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas, working through the mind, giving rise to all kinds of emotions, feelings, and ignorance and knowledge and all those things. The BMI, therefore, restricts the visibility of the infinitude within us. Because at the visibility we are talking about, each one of us understanding us within the limitations, using that limited mind. Because with the mind only we can actually refer back to the self. The self as such is not capable or there is no property like perception, understanding and all those things. That is the property of the mind. Perception and understanding are the properties of the mind. So when the mind is energized, perception and understanding and all those things come into our form. With that perception and understanding, we need to understand that we are the self. That is something which is beyond even this understanding and knowledge. So the BMI is limiting us, the limited existence, and it is working through. We can only work through, if you look at carefully on the screen, you will see there are 9 openings shown there. 9 actually orifices. We have the eyes, 2, nose, the mouth, 2 ears. So 2 plus 1, 2 plus 4 plus 1, 5 plus 2, 7. And then, of course, the anus and the genital. So 9 orifices. The physical body has 9 orifices. And the mind expresses through them and connects with those things and then expresses through the thoughts that are connected to these experiences obtained from the outside world and in the inner world. Through these orifices and works with the hand and the legs. So this is how we are restricted. So the sense organs working through the 9 orifices tie the mind and the intellect, of course, to the BMI and then makes us work in this world. That is what we are. And within this framework, we sometimes, most people forget the fact that all this is possible because of that infinite power within me. The only thing is that the power when it is expressing through BMI, can never be the infinite. I mean, that's it. The power cannot be infinite, but the energy is infinite. So this is the framework. This is what we are. We should understand this. The infinite existence, powering the BMI, and immediately we are BMI directed, and we become a limited existence. All of us become limited. For that, the jiva becomes limited. The self is not limited, but the jiva is limited. This is basically what the the selected sloka talks about. Sarvadvarani samyamya mano hridi nirudhya cha murdhyat adhyaya atmana pranamastido yoga dharanam. So, situated that way within this 9 orificed body. So, if you want to really understand the self, if you want to really connect with the self, you need to samyamya. Sarvadvarani samyamya. You need to control your sense organs, all the sense organs. The 9 orifices has to be controlled. Have to be controlled. Mano hridi nirudhyacha. You should have not only the sense control, but mind control and thought control. That is, your intellect has to be controlled, your mind has to be controlled, and the 9 orifices have to be controlled. Then only your thoughts and actions will start reflecting the values of the self. How can you do that? Controlling this. And when you control, what happens is, that process is mentioned here. Murdat adhyaya atmana adhyaya. That is, you have to fix your thoughts on the murda. That is just behind this, murda. It is the area which is, between your eyes, which is basically the neocortical areas of the brain. That is the higher level thought process area. That is why this area has been mentioned here. So you have to totally control the flow of thinking, and by controlling your inner flows, the metabolic flows within you, by focusing on the murda, fixing it, adhaya, bringing thought towards that point, controlling all your metabolic activities, in that sense, all the flow within you. Pranamastito yoga dharanam. By fixing all the flow within you at that meaning, by controlling all the 9 orifices, etc., which means that you get totally, all your actions, thoughts, and inputs and intakes from the outside world, everything has to be controlled such that all your thoughts and actions are geared towards the self. This is what is called as yoga dharanam. This is what is called as yoga. This process. So, in living, what is this? In the process of living in this world, I am not talking about sitting in a corner and meditating. I am talking about the process where constantly, every time you are challenged, when you are engaged in the process of thinking and acting in this world, you are constantly watched. You have a watchdog within you, which is helping you to control all your senses. In the sense, not going after pleasures, instant gratifications, etc., but controlling it and focusing on the higher value systems of the self. What is that? It is all about yajna, being engaged in actions in the world with yajna bhava. Because yajna is upon which that Brahma is rooted. Brahmam yajne pradishtitam. It was talked about in the 3rd chapter. The Brahman, the infinite, is manifested as yajna within each one of us. Infinite is manifested as yajna in the physical world, therefore in the minds of people. So if my mind is geared towards yajna, that means Brahman, The infinite is expressing through me. I become Brahma because my thoughts are yajna, yajna swarupa. That is, my actual inner being becomes sacrifice, yajna bhava, sacrifice, which is basically in English we translate it into other functions like coexistence and expansion. Sacrifice means coexistence and expansion in the physical world, in the material world, in the world of transactions of our living. If we are able to think in terms of coexistence and expansion, and if we are able to articulate that thought into actions that actually employ coexistence and expansion as the core, and express them in actions as actions of sacrifice, of teamwork, cooperation, sacrifice, and dedication, and bhakti, and all those things, then what happens is we are in tune with the Brahman, because Brahman is expressing through you. This is constantly doing this, meaning consistently engaging in actions with this thought is called as yoga dharana. That is being actually dedicated or established in yoga. That is what is called as established in yoga. So this is how your actions become imperishable, because sacrifice is the form of imperishability. I mean, the imperishability is expressing through sacrifice. So you should understand that I am the self, I am the infinite, and I am imperishable. And how can I exhibit imperishability? By engaging in actions with a yajna, bringing Brahman into my thought process and into my actions. Then I become imperishable. So, in the practical world, what does it imply? It implies that such kind of actions, which we have seen in Karma Yoga, how you can translate the Yajna, Tyaga, Samarpana, Prasada, Bhavas into action plan. In terms of, in the modern terminologies like, teamwork, cooperation, followership, and self-management, networking, and leadership, and all those things. So when we actually translate the Yajna Bhava into these actions, then all our actions become sustainable. Sustainability is the material manifestation of imperishability. In the sense that, in the material, of course, when you say imperishable, there is always a limit because it is matter, material. And what is called as sustainability is the direct manifestation of imperishability. So the imperishable Brahman in the physical world is the sustainable thoughts and actions that we bring forth into this world through the attitude of Yajna Bhava. That is how we connect with imperishability. So this is the process of the mind and intellect connecting with the self. What do you mean by mind and intellect connecting with the self? It is the process of actually understanding that Yajna Bhava or sacrifice is my real form, and that I need to bring that sacrifice into all my thoughts and actions. And then the actions become imperishable or actions become sustainable. This is the prescription. 8.13 is therefore talking about how do you become imperishable. Each one of us can become imperishable. There is only one way to do it, to bring in the attitude of sacrifice into all our actions. That means we actually become the infinite. When we become the infinite, we become imperishable. That is it. So, sense control, mind control, and thought control, in constantly engaging in actions with these controls geared towards the self, understanding that Yajna Bhava is my form, and therefore bringing the Yajna Bhava into all your thoughts and actions. Yes, you can. All of us can think, that is very ideal situation, and it is very difficult to follow. Yes, absolutely, it is very difficult. So, what the Gita is telling you is not to actually start every day. Today, every 9 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours or whatever, I am going to engage that way, and in the night you are bound to become disappointed because you will realize that you have failed many a times. Yeah, and Krishna is not telling you to become despondent. Arjuna, don't become despondent. You will fail like that. Because your BMI is made of material stuff. You will fail. Your mind will go after pleasures. Your mind will be selfish. And you will fail. But be constantly aware that no, that is not the right thing to do. And if you start practicing this, maybe in 2 or 3 actions today, I did that. And I might have committed other errors, mistakes. But in the end, think about those 3 things that I did selflessly, without any selfishness, with yajna, tyaga, samarpana, prasada, bhavas. I derive a sense of happiness in having done that. In the night, spend a few minutes doing that. You will feel the happiness of having engaged in selfless actions in 3 cases. Tomorrow, you will be forced or motivated to do more. Maybe 4 or 5 instances where you engage in the world like that. And you keep on doing that across a period of time, maybe 5 years from now. Every day you are doing this. 5 years from now, you find that 60% of your time you are engaged in selfless actions. Another 5 years from now, 10 years later, you will find that you are 75 to 80% successful. And so on and so forth. That is the process. This is a lifelong process. And some people may achieve it in very in a small time frames, but some may take more time. But that is a process. That is normal. It goes on. So every time, make sure that at instances where you are checking on this, make sure that you are progressing and not deteriorating. That is it. Then you are on the right path. So this is that process. Okay. So that is basically what this is actually illustrated in the story of Puranjana in Mahabhagavata Purana. Okay, so I just wanted to touch upon that. The Bhagavata Purana is talking about this in a story manner where Puranjana is the Jiva. Puranjana, the one Jiva which takes birth and dies. Puranjana. Where does the Jiva take birth? In the cells, it in a physical body. The Brahman, infinite, actually in the form of Jiva takes shape within a body which has got 9 gates, the 9 orifices that I talked about now, and then supported by the hands and legs, which is basically illustrated in the story as different people in that fort, as Kadyodam and Avirmukhi as the left eye and the right eye. The openings on the east side, it is said. On the east of that fort, the 2 openings are called as Kadyodam and Avirmukhi. So Kadyodam in Sanskrit means left eye, and Avirmukhi means right eye. So you see, the names are given in such a fashion that it is exactly representing that whole. But when we read through the slogas and then we just read through the transliteration, we go by the story as these things. On the east side we have Kadyodam and Avirmukhi as the friend of the Jiva, using whose friendships he goes out, and with the friend Dyuman, he actually goes across those areas and enjoys the world. That's what it is written. So this Jiva, which is trapped in this, Puranjana enters the 9-hold city, and then he saw a beautiful lady there. The intellect gets connected with that lady, starts loving her, and then starts living with her. And then he would enjoy the outside world. How? Going out through the Kadyodam and Avirmukhi, with Dyuman as the friend, and enjoying the world outside, which is lighted by Vibrajita, by Dyuman. Dyuman means sun, Surya, light, source of light. So the conscious is talking, the Puranjana is that within us, the Jiva, which is our inner consciousness, the awareness consciousness principle that is within us, Jiva, which is the representation of the infinite, which is now going out through the eye. The consciousness goes out through the eye, and with light as his friend, enjoys the world lighted by the light. illuminated by the light. Just see, this is how beautifully the Purana describes, Puranjano Vakyanam describes this as a story. But we need to understand the names and the names and forms given there. And then only we will understand that it is about us that it is talking about, and not some person who is entering a city on the south of Himalayas, and then, all those kind of stories. That is story elements, illustration, the imagination, the visualization that the poet used to illustrate this beautiful concept of the self getting entrenched within the BMI. So we have Hadodayam, Avirmugi going through that with Duman as the front, enjoying the world outside, which is lit up by this Duman, the sun. Similar, that is the east side. And on the east side, there are two more gates called as Nalini and Nalini. Nalini means nostril. Nalini also means nostril. Then the friend. Who is the friend of the nostril? The friend of the nostril named Avadudha. Avadudha means that which is fanned by. Which means that the air, actually, air, wind, air, fanned by the smells come through us through the wind in the outside world. So the wind actually brings in smells, surabha. Surabha is that thing that is brought about, which is fragrance. So the wind brings in fragrances through these nostrils, Nalini and Nalini, and the consciousness gets engaged with that and then enjoys the world. So that is that east. And then, of course, similarly, south and north gates, as well as the west gates, are also described. The 7 gates, and then, of course, the genitals and the anus. Asudi and Niryati, that is also mentioned in the west side. And along with this, there is also this Peshakrit, hand, and the Nirvahak, the performer, which is the legs, the mover, etc. So legs and hands. With that, and combined with Puranjani, the gross intellect, directed by Puranjani. Puranjana lived in this world, spreading everywhere, Visujana, suffering and enjoying errors, serenity and delight, suffering errors and, sad experiences, as well as enjoying serenity, delight, and all kinds of happiness and enjoyment. So this is how life, Puranjana in the physical body, is engaged with the life. So if you want to really actually escape from this pleasures and attractions, then you need to control all the 9 orifices. Now, that is the Sarvadvarani Samyamya. That is what the Gita is talking about. And this story of how people get actually connected with the outside world through these 9 orifices, and then engage in this world with the hands and legs, and the intellect, directing it, is basically the story of Puranjana that was talked about. And then what happens? The story goes on to talk about the various kinds of, attacks that come to us, the fear and the diseases and all those things, as illustrated as Kala Yavana and all those kind of, army, people who attack you, which is basically time rolling by and you getting attacked with old age and diseases and the consequent, loss of strength of all these things. The gates actually start getting destroyed, and ultimately the fort collapses. So Puranjana, the story of Puranjana, is basically the phenomenon of the infinite becoming the consciousness within us, and then engaging in actions in this world by interacting with the outside world through the 9 orifices and the hands and legs, controlled by the mind and intellect, Puranjani. So the story is so beautiful. In fact, all the stories of Bhagavata Purana, you can say the names and other people, the names of the people given, etc., are all meaningful. Just like these several people, that characters that have been listed in Puranjana story, every one of those single names, every name in the Puranjana is actually a representation of something physical as well as physical or physiological and feeling, mental and intellectual things that we actually exhibit. Okay, so I don't want to fully go into that story, but this is basically what it is all about. It is exactly this imperishable self representation that is being shown there. So we need to get rid of this by this process of controlling the nine orifices and then engaging in the world with the thought of the self, with the thought of the value systems, with the thought of the Yajna Bhava as our prime force to engage in thinking and working in this world. So in whatever profession you are working in, whatever field of endeavor that you are in, you can start engaging the Yajna Bhava in all, thoughts and actions, decisions that you take, the actions that you perform, the interactions that you have with your teams, etc. Bring in the Yajna Bhava. That means bringing in the Brahman, the infinitive, bringing in the infinite self, the self. Yajna is the physical representation of the self. So that's why Gita is defined that way. So this is how you bring in the infinitude into your actions. And then what happens is you will be lifted to that existence or the powers of the infinite. With the BMI actually getting short-circuited in the sense that your mind, you have to use the BMI itself to do that. That is the trick. So the BMI now is self-directed. And therefore, you bring, you go yourself, you take yourself into the level of infinite, the Brahman. So, Sarvadvarani Samyamya Mano Hridi Nirudhyacha Murdat Adhyaya Atmana Pranamastido Yoga Dharanam. This is the process that we described. Yoga, this is the yoga. This is how you are, established in yoga, Yoga Dharanam. This is the way you live in this world, your physical world, the material world, the day-to-day transactory world, in the state of yoga. So, which means that your thoughts and actions become imperishable, which means, in practical terms, your thoughts and actions become sustainable, reflecting sustainability, inclusion, and enrichment. That is what Bhagavad-Gita is talking about. It's not, it is, in a non-spiritual manner, if you have to study Bhagavad-Gita and establish the Gita as the essence of your living, then you have to do this. So, now the next concept that is described in the next verse is one of the very prime, I consider that as one of the prime messages that we need to get from the Bhagavad Gita to make sure that you live in this world with the Gita as the essence of your breath. There it is talking about leaving the body. Okay, the death process is talked about. Death. Death is not the right word. The self leaving the body is what the Gita talks about. Self leaving the body. Okay, that is what the Gita is talking about. It is not death. Self leaving the body is what Gita is talking about. So, can you imagine something that is infinite leaving something? It's not possible, isn't it? Infinite means it is everywhere. So, how can it leave something? If something is leaving something, that means there is a, from place and the two place are different. There is a partition. So the self, which is infinite, how can it leave from one spot to the other spot? No, because it is everywhere. So because I am self and I am everywhere, there is no question of me leaving this space. Okay, so that is pure logic. So leaving the body implies only one thing. What is it? It is leaving your body, mind, and intellect. How? And that also within every cell of your body, self is there. But your mind, it is the state of your mind. Your mind is now letting the self go. And it is your state that is being talked about. Leaving the body. Your meaning, your body's, your mind's thoughts. Your thoughts. leaving the body is basically what it is all about. So if your thoughts, which are leaving your body, wreaks havoc in the outside world negatively, what happens? You are not reflecting Brahman. You're destroying the peace, serenity, and fertility of the world, let's say, through your actions. That means you are not reflecting the self, because yajna bhava is not being present. By doing that, what is happening is you are actually establishing the ego of your mind, the selfishness of your mind. So when the self is leaving your body, means it is coming out as actions in the outside world. And that action is carried by your vasanas, through your thoughts. And when that is reflecting these kind of negative things, it is reflecting what your body, mind, and intellect, the qualities of your body, mind, and intellect, sattva-rajas, tamo gunas, which is the ego, selfishness. But suppose instead you are engaged in actions with yajna bhava, cooperation, sacrifice, yajna tyaga, samarpana, prasada bhavas, in tune with the coexistence and expansion as the higher value system, the values, the infinite values. Suppose your actions, thoughts are like that, and your actions represent that positive things. Then what happens? The self is leaving your body as infinite itself. That is basically what. So when the self leaves your body, depending on the state in which your mind is tuned, there will be a reaction in the outside world. Negatively, when you are selfish, and when you are selfless, there is no reflection, no ripples at all in the outside world, because you are merely reflecting coexistence and expansion, or yajna bhava, sacrifice in the outside world, because infinite itself is sacrifice. Sacrifice is the normal, the state of the world, the physical manifested world. The normal state is sacrifice, yajna bhava. And when your actions are also yajna, there is no ripple in the outside world. That is what Krishna talked about in the 4th chapter. If you remember, in Jnana Karma Yoga, what did he say? He said that such actions are actionlessness in action. 4th chapter, we talked about actionlessness in action. While engaged in action, still you are actionless. That is that state. But the moment your BMI comes into play, selfishness comes into play, your attractions through the 9 orifices, and then your actions with your hands and legs become selfish, then you are creating ripples in this world because of selfishness of your mind. So leaving the body implies actually, in self, when you are reflecting yajna tyaga samarpana prasada bhavas, leaving the body implies leaving the limitations imposed by our own body, mind, and intellect. That is what actionless in action means. That is what karma bhala tyaga, or selfless actions. That is what you call, non-bound action. Actions that do not bind you. Karma bandham, without any karma bandham. So leaving that body implies leaving the limitations imposed by our own mind on our strengths. So that is the basic tenet, principle. If you have to constantly reflect on this, and then you may start connecting with it. And connecting with it means you will start realizing the infinitude, your own infinitude. By engaging your mind and intellect in such a fashion that you realize this, that you have faith, total faith in this principle of yajna, sacrifice. Therefore, total faith in infinitude, that you are infinite. That is basically what this is all about. So here, Krishna is now, talking about the fact that you actually start expanding the blue thing and become infinite. That way, when you are able to completely bring in yajna bhava in your thoughts, and consequently your actions. That is what, now Krishna is talking about that in the 13th verse of the 8th chapter. Om iti egaksharam Brahma Vyaharan mam anusmaran ya prayati tejan deham, when the body, when the self leaves the body, tejan deham, when the body is left aside, sa yadi paramangatim. If actually constantly you are engaged in this thought of om iti egaksharam, that the symbol om, which is a monosyllable but containing three phonemes, a, u, and ma, that is the physical representation of Brahma. So there is the value system of coexistence and expansion. And that coexistence and expansion is the current which is coming out of you as what? Om, A, U, and Ma. Vyaharan, and engaging in this world, spreading around. So what does that imply? So it just in transliteration in simple terms is talking about if you engage, if you actually start uttering or chanting oh while you are meditating on the self and the self leaves you, then you will reach the highest abode. That's what it says. So which is very superficially described in terms of at the time of death, if you are able to chant Om, then you will reach salvation. That is the transliteration. But Bhagavad-Gita is not talking about that. It is talking about a very active engagement in this world and a meaningful existence in this world. That is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. So let us look at the details of this. Om iti egaksharam Brahma. Brahma is represented by this one syllabled word, symbol called Om. And that is basically what? It is about three phases. A, U, and Ma representing three things. A is the outside world. U represents the inner world of dreams and aspirations, and is that state of actually expressing it. In physically also you can actually see that is to illustrate it in a very simple manner. When you are actually breathing Om, when you are chanting Om, right, you first take in all the air into your lungs, and therefore that lungs now represent the full world that you have created. And using that, then you actually push that is, when you utter the first the Om, when you start with Om, you take in air, and then that air is released through the process of releasing is Om. You release it through your your windpipes, and then it goes through the trachea and all the undulations there and create the sound. The U represents that. That is what is called as the articulation of the sound. The world is now articulated, because initially it is just a set of just the air representing the world, and that air is now passing through undulations, creating what is called as the sound, the vibrations, the sound U. And then it expresses. So thought, articulation, and then expression through the mouth. That is the word. Okay, so A, U, and Ma represents thinking, articulation, and expression. So what it says is that the infinitude, the sacrifice, the mentality of sacrifice, the attitude of sacrifice in every thought, articulation, and expression. When you are chanting Om and doing something means when you are actually thinking, articulating, and expressing the infinitude, Brahma, that is the expression of sacrifice that you are getting engaged in, which is represented by, in this sloka, as the chanting of the Om. In all your life's transactions, if you can do that, then at that point in time, what the self is now getting out of you and expressed in the world as sacrifices. Therefore, it will take you, such actions will take you to the highest level. or it will actually release you from the bondage of hope and despair, from the bondage of life and death, from the bondage of negatives and positive undulations. That is basically what the freedom from limitations is basically what is achieved through somebody who is actually releasing the self by thinking, articulating, and expressing sacrifice. That is what this sloga is talking about. So, it is about expressions in the outside world being the articulations of higher aspirations or combined with the knowledge and wisdom. The knowledge is and the wisdom, the highest self. Self is represented as the wisdom, which is the state of infinitude. Turiya state. And the Turiya state, the fourth state. So that is, if you can engage your life in this fashion, the self will be constantly getting out of you and expressing in as infinitude, sacrifice in the outside world. And that means if you are constantly doing this with Om as your guiding principle, means if you are constantly engaging in thoughts, articulations, and expressions, in this manner, then you will reach Paramam Gadim. You will reach the highest form of whatever thing you are engaged in. You can reach the highest level of excellence. You can get freed from all your limitations, is the other meaning. Freeing yourself from your limitations. That is the state that you reach. Omit Egaksharam Brahma, Vyavaharan Mamanusmaran, with the self as the thought, the infinitude as the thought. Yeah, prayadi tajandeham, and when it gets out of your body, you will reach that state of excellence. That is the figurative way, the allegorical way in which the translation of your thoughts and actions into sacrifice is mentioned as the path towards excellence. So that is basically, it's about think, dream or aspire, and express, do. Think, dream, express, do, and reach the state of wisdom. Think, dream, express, do, reach the state of. Think, dream, express, reach the state of wisdom.
That's a very nice story.
Sorry, somebody's mic got unmuted. Okay, so think, dream, and express, and reach the state of wisdom. Ma, and the state of silence. Turiya. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, Turiya. Think, dream, express, wisdom. Okay, so this is this process of living in this world with the infinite as your driving force. So it's about the Brahman, infinite at the top, which is shown as infinite, becoming the Atman within you to enable your thought processes, dream aspirations, and your power to do things. This is basically what you are. Just think, this is what you are. So this picture, the animation here, basically represents each one of us in spirit, the infinite expressing through us as thoughts, aspirations, and actions in the world, powered by the consciousness, the Atman. The infinite powered by infinite is becoming the Atman within us, the consciousness within us, powering us to think, to dream, and to express. So every one of us can actually start imagining us, each individual, each one of us, each one of you can think of yourself as this process. This is happening inside you. If you can dream, if you can think about this and constantly picturize the way this infinitude is coming to your mind and then expressing through you, this is a kind of meditation that you can engage in, which is basically what in the 9th chapter Krishna talks about. This as Ananya Chintanam, Ananyas Chintayando Mam, Ye Janaha Paryupasate, Tesham Nitya Abhiyuktanam, Yogatshemam Mahamyaham, which we will again look at in the next month. So, this is the way that you can tap infinitude to become a sustainable expression of the infinite, an imperishable in Atman. How the imperishable Brahman becomes your Atman, and how your actions become sustainable in this world. So it's all about translating knowledge into inspirations and then strategies in the outside world. These strategies was talked about in Karma Yoga. The process of connecting to become the self, love of the self, that is inspiration, the intrinsic motivation, the inspiration of the self. And now the knowledge required for that is fine-tuned in the Jnana Yoga from chapter 13 to chapter 18. So you can see knowledge, inspiration, and strategies are the three fundamental things that the Bhagavad-Gita teaches us. Strategies are through the work, Karma Yoga. Inspiration is Bhakti, which is basically what we are now talking. And then finally 13th to 18th talks about finer details of the knowledge. Sapta Rajas Tamo Gunas and self and not self and all those things. So knowledge, inspiration, and strategies. We have to tap the knowledge, inspiration, and strategies to translate the infinitude by the use of our thought power, our aspirations, and your capabilities to do things. So basically it's about creativity and innovation, productivity and progress, mobility and enrichment. These basically are the three needs of the society. Actions required are creation and knowledge and creative capabilities, sustenance and maintenance capabilities, and annihilation of negative things so that values can grow there. Values are always there. It is only a question of annihilating the negatives and the values will shine forth. So that is the actions that we need to bring forth in this world. Outcomes are sustainable existence, inclusive wisdom, and enriching happiness. So it is used through thinking. It has to be brought about by thinking, articulation, and expression. That's basically what it's all about. And this is represented by the Om that I was talking, chanting of Om, the lungs taking in the world, and then through the larynx, vocal cords, they are being pushed out, and finally in the nasal and oral cavity, the expression of the sound, Om. So constantly, if someone who reflects on this creative, productive, and noble values, they will attain the power of the state of the self, the imperishable state of the self. It is about, how do you actually bring about sustainability, inclusiveness, and enrichment in this world? By understanding the Bhagavad-Gita and living the Bhagavad-Gita in all your actions, in family life, as well as in professional life and in social engagements. Imperishable self-expression through each one of us. This is how it is. In fact, there is another mapping that you can bring about in this, which is about creativity, productivity, and nobility. In terms of physical actions in the world, it is about creation and knowledge, sustenance and capability, of wealth of capabilities, and annihilation and of negative ones and or enrichment of values. So this is basically what our Trimurtis represent: creation, knowledge, Brahma, Saraswati; sustenance and wealth of capabilities, Vishnu and Mahalakshmi; and the annihilation of negative values, the fierce power of energy to kill the negative things, and the value systems of discriminative intelligence is represented by Shiva and Parvati. So these three Trimurtis are nothing but this manifestation of the infinite as powers within us. In different, the power is infinite and it contains everything in it. Now, when in the physical world, we are trying to understand the various aspects of that infinite power, and classified it as three. That is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And their consorts, which is Saraswati Devi, Lakshmi Devi, and Parvati Devi. So that the outcomes are sustainable. Existence, inclusive wisdom, enriching happiness. Or, which is expressed, ultimately, if you look at it, the process is thinking, articulation, and expression. So, Om, chanting Om, You can reach that state of, do things and you can reach the state of infinitude or perfection. It is how the infinite becomes the Trimurtis within us, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, and the Devis, and we engage those powers within us and think, articulate, and express in the world. The same infinitude, infinite value systems, coexistence and expansion. You are imperishable. You are, because that is your identity. If you can realize this identity, if you have confidence in this identity, if you have faith in this identity, then there is no question of doubt in it. Then you will strive. You will strive to improve every day. This process is how you tap the imperishable self within you. Therefore, have unshakable faith in the imperishable self. That is the message that the 8th chapter is giving us. Have such unshakable faith in the imperishable. Don't doubt it. Believe this process and carry on with this every day by putting self-effort. So the details are there in the 8th chapter. 8th chapter is talking about how you go about doing it, and I am translating that into an action plan, which is about bringing the infinite into your action plan. Self-effort. That is what is called as self-effort. And nobody can actually ask you to do things. Then if somebody is asking you to do things and you are doing it, then it is not self-effort. It is the mind, another mind interacting with your mind, and the mind is forcing you to do things. It will never be perfect. You have to have that power from within us. You have to tap that within us. For that, so, which we had shared this also previously, we need to develop abundant mindset, sadhabhava, positive mindset. And we need to align our goals and our intentions. You can intend to do something good. You have set goals, but your intentions to achieve that should also be matching with the same thing. You have a goal, but your intentions are different, you fail. So abundant mindset, aligning your goals and intentions, inspiration for the joys of the self, which is about coexistence and expansion, and having patience. You have to keep doing this. You have to keep on doing this. Otherwise, and then, you might fail. You may face negative experiences in life because of all these sometimes. But you have to strive. And, there is that patience is important. You have to trust the wealth of knowledge. You have to trust that you are universal. You are imperishable. And you have to put in your effort. And at some point, that effort will reach a critical mass, and then you will start seeing the results. Initially, you may not. You may face difficulties, and don't give up. If you give up, you are lost. So the critical mass has to be reached to take effect, these things to take effect. So that is basically what it is all about. These are practical elaborations of how you actually start doing things, which I can share on the WhatsApp group. So you can take a printout or copy it and then start thinking over it, so that your imperishable self is manifested in a systematic manner, in a relentless manner, in a persistent and consistent manner, such that you don't give up and you reach critical mass. Maybe in 1 month, maybe in 10 months, maybe in 3 years, you will reach critical mass, and then you will start reaping the results. So you have to force your mind to be positive initially. Force your mind to be positive. Even when you are dogged by negativities. Even when cortisol and such other neurotransmitters are habiting your brain, you have to force dopamine and serotonin, etc. Oxytocin, etc. Forcing the mind to be positive. And forcing that mind to be intrinsically motivated to manifest these value systems. Don't be led by the 9 gates and their pleasures or selfishness. You have to consistently and persistently and deliberately shut out unwanted distractions. For that, you need to have your B brain. controlling your A brain, constantly having a watchdog brain, look out for your transgressions, forcing the mind to be flexible, persistent, and trusting the manifestation process to achieve the critical mass. You should also be able to trust your feelings, body, judgment, intuition, etc., and employ right attitudes, supreme motivations to manifest this enrichment in thought processes. Karma Yoga, engaging in Karma Yoga. So that is the process. This is the physical process of getting engaged in such actions and living this world in terms of this imperishable self powering, the faith that the imperishable self is powering you. So have unshakable faith in the imperishable self, so that you are constantly living in the process of, being creative, productive, and noble or enriching. Therefore, you are actually translating the imperishability of the Brahman in your thought processes and actions, in which case you are always going upward. You will go upward. You will go towards success, perennial success, sustainable success. If you are ruled by the body, mind, and intellect and the pleasures thereof, then you are doomed. And this process of following the self is called as the time of hope, the mental attitude of being positive. It is described in the 8th chapter as the path of fire, light, and the sun. Fire of productive and physical capabilities, light of the power of thinking. Thinking lights up your mind. And sun as the consciousness that is powering the mind, powered by the intellect. Intellect is the first representation of consciousness within us. The conscious awareness within us. The intellect is should be in control. So the sun, light, and fire. The path of sun, light, and fire is about values-based living. That is the path of upward progression. Whereas the BMI-led path is described as that filled with smoke of doubt and hesitations and being clouded in your judgments, darkness of ignorance and lethargy and evilness, etc. And moonlight of which is reflected moonlight of my mind and the emotions. Selfishness-based living. This is the time of despair. In the time of despair, you are going down. The path is actually taking you downward, southward. The path of hope is taking you northward, and the path of despair, hope, is taking you southward. So the first was called as Uttarayana, and the path of the despair is called as Dakshinayana. So just say, in the times of Uttarayana, if the self leaves your mind, body, if the self leaves your body, what will happen? In times of Uttarayana, if the self leaves your body, what happens? You have to actually analogically represent the leaving of the self from your body is through your thoughts and actions. So what it means is that in times of Uttarayana, how will your actions be in the outside world? When the mind is oriented towards, with hope of light, fire, light, sun, values-based living, Uttarayana, then your actions are going to be taking you upward, northward, to the state of limitlessness and escape from limitations. Whereas if it is BMI-led, smoke, darkness, and moon is guiding you, then that is your selfishness will take you down ultimately to suffer the consequences of all your actions and live a mediocre living. You will hit mediocrity. That is Dakshinayana. So this is the process that is described at the end of the 8th chapter. How the imperishable self How you need to tap the imperishable self such that you live a life in times of that Uttarayana, time of hope, positive, values-based living. Don't give into selfishness-based living. And finally concludes that Vedeshu, Yajneshu, Tabassu Chaiva, Dhaneshu, Yat Punyaphalam Pradishtham. Atyevi Tat Sarvamidam Viditva Yogi Param Sthanam Upaidi Cha Adyam. Such a person who actually, you can actually do a lot of things but with knowledge, Vedas, Vedeshu, through knowledge, gaining knowledge, Dhaneshu, gaining Vedeshu, Yajneshu, by sacrifices, or Taba, austerities. So, Vedeshu, Yajneshu, Tabassu, Dhaneshu, and charity. Charity. So, knowledge, cooperation, Yajna, austerities, Taba, and charity, Dhana. All this, you can attain certain things. But, you can apply knowledge for selfish gains. You can cooperate and do Yajna, Bhava, in terms of, selfishness, for selfish purposes. Austerities also can be done for a selfish prosperity. I have to develop my capabilities so that I can, defeat my competitor and these kind of negative things. I mean, as competition in the negative manner. And charity, you can also give charity for publicity, etc. So knowledge, cooperation, and austerities and charity, you can gain some things by doing that, but much, much more than what you can gain through mere knowledge, cooperation, austerities, and charity. If your faith, if your belief in this universal imperishable self and the value systems thereof, the imperishable values of coexistence and expansion, faith in the imperishable self, that will fetch you much, much more than what you can get through knowledge, cooperation, austerities, and charity. That is basically, ultimately, the conclusion. So all this you have to do, and you can gain much more. Even though the elements of it, you can also use it in selfishness and gain something, but not optimal. That highest level is achieved when you have faith in the imperishable self and you devote all your thoughts and actions with these infinite values of coexistence and expansion, which is the Yajna Bhava. So, perfection of sustainability is achieved through knowledge, attitudes, austerities, and charity are the foursome sources of merits that we can aim to possess and to cultivate and to gain success. But when the merits are directed towards the joys of the self, by the joys of the self and towards the joys of the self, then we transcend the limitations of our BMI and rise to the, when we transcend the limitations of the BMI and rise to the level of supreme excellence that is sustainable is our goal. So transcending the limitations of your BMI implies, in simple terms, things that you do not know currently, let's say, is a limitation. So when you are challenged by something new, a new situation, many people feel that you are not up to it and then do not put in effort and fail. That means you are succumbing to your limitation. So, but this, if you have this power of imperishable self within you and your belief in it, then you will be able to transcend those limitations by acquiring knowledge, austerities, attitude, through knowledge and austerities and cooperative activities, etc., directed towards that sustainable value systems. Then you will actually gain more new knowledge and gain more, visibility, and in terms of, being, engaging in sustainable actions in this world, enriching actions in this world. You expand yourself. That is getting out of your limitations. So you can actually enhance your existing capabilities. That is also transcending your limitations. Or you can gain new knowledge and new capabilities. That is also transcending your limitations of the BMI. So transcending the limitations of BMI means enhancing your existing knowledge and capabilities, and also gaining new knowledge and capabilities, which is about Kshema and yoga, or the other way, yoga and Kshema. This yoga and Kshema is basically supported by the self in this process. Now, that process is what basically in the 9th chapter Krishna talks about, and summarizes that in Ananyas Chintayento Mam Yajanoha Paripasate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yogatshemam Mahabhyam in the 9th chapter, 22nd verse. So we'll come to that next month. But so this is basically what it is all about. It is about your perfection, reaching the state of perfection in a sustainable way. We become true reflectors of the imperishable. So that is how we reach this Akshara Brahmatva. So next chapter, next on July 11th, we will talk about the 9th chapter, the contents of 9th chapter, which is about your infinitude, which we will talk about in the next month session. So I will stop at this point. Anandji, yeah.
Namaste, everyone. See, actually, if I correctly understood, the mind is not possible with the BMI to comprehend the power of the self, right? Correct?
It is yes and no. Yes, it is difficult, because the self, that concept of self or Brahman or infinitude, is beyond beyond the scope of the mind to comprehend it in terms of that. But fortunately, the mind has been given the power to actually reflect on, and then and then to connect with that concept in some fashion. And it depends on how actually you are able to, how the grade at which you are able to actually connect with that concept will depend upon the evolution that you will make in terms of being really in connect with the self. So there are probably we can think about some people who have really achieved those levels. Very, very, very few people. And even Bhagavad-Gita talks about as all those kind of 1 in 1,000, and then 1 in 100,000, or 10 in 100,000, then 1 in that, and still further down, from millions to few numbers. Only those people really achieve that. Is basically what it says. That doesn't mean that should not actually discourage us. What I am talking about is a practical way of living a life which is rooted in sacrifice. That is a meaningful way of translating this wisdom into our transactions in daily living here in this world. And you can leave behind a legacy that is more lasting than what you can think of. So if our goal is limited to that, then I think we can put to use these things with confidence.
Correct. Here we should believe, we have the power. If you start analyzing that power, it is not possible for us to reach that. Somebody was giving a very nice, an Acharya was giving a nice example. He says, a wave it wanted to know the power because, the wave has come from the ocean, right? So the wave wanted to know my power. So let me see. I am also an ocean only. Let me see what is the power of the ocean. So it goes back to the ocean. So it becomes the ocean. It cannot remain as a wave.
Correct. It cannot. So
So
so therefore, I think in our current frame of discussions, we are not looking at that kind of a release from bondage in terms of becoming the infinite. Let us become sustainable in this world.
aware.
So that brings in value to your living in this world, your interactions with the world, and bringing about some kind of a change in this world, and leaving behind a legacy which others can also. I mean, something like, in simple terms, if we look at, you talk about Mahatma Gandhi. What is his legacy? His legacy is about satyagraha, and non-violence. See, so these are legacies that we talk about. That's something that he has left behind. So these are the expressions of the infinite in terms of thoughts and actions in the outside world, which somebody used it for some particular transactory thing in this world, which is about gaining our independence from the British rule. Something things like that.
See, another thing, today I got an answer. Most of the times we say selfless work, right? It is very difficult to define selfless work between two interactions. There is always one fellow who is gaining, the other fellow is losing. Yes or no?
Correct.
So that selfless work in interactional world, it is very difficult.
It is difficult, but yeah, it is difficult. Correct. So
today I got an answer what it should be.
Okay. Yeah, you got. Yes, please enlighten us also.
No. Please, you only enlightened us. You said a nice word. All our interactions should be value based.
Right.
You mentioned, very nicely. I think I got in fact, I was totally confused till today. How can we have selfless work? It is not possible in an interactional world. When I give something, somebody gets, I am losing. Right? And when I take, that fellow is losing. There's no question of any selfless work in an interaction.
Right. Yeah.
If you change that, into a value-based interaction, value-based work, I think that gives more an understanding, and we can very clearly, with a clear mind, we can do it.
Right, and also the other litmus test is about whatever you think, decision you take, and whatever you do, try to see how many people are positively affected by that decision and action, and how many probably maybe negatively also affected. And if there is a big difference between these two, then you are on the right side.
Correct.
Yeah, Divya.
I wanted to add something that I just thought of, when Anandji was talking about this. So, Gita says that, we should do selfless acts. And Krishna also says that, you do your acts and don't worry about the fruit or the positive result. So, in effect, if someone is doing a selfless act and say, for example, you normally do a selfless act, but in some cases you get some benefit which you did not expect. So you get something positive. So that is effectively, Krishna working his way through, other humans who are also his instruments. So you're getting unexpected good results by somebody else's selfless act. And sometimes when your acts are selfless, it's like a fruit for somebody else. So, that happens through through these interactions, right?
Right. And these unexpected results that you get, you can receive it. There is no problem, because Krishna doesn't say that you should not receive results.
Yes.
It is only about expectations of the result when you are doing.
Exactly.
That is what is to be avoided, and the results that by that you can prasada, with prasada bhava you should.
Yeah, with prasad, right. Right. I also wanted to just discuss. I recently read one book by an American neurosurgeon. It's called Proof of Heaven, and so it's about this near-death experience. It's a specific concept, right? Like a lot of people have experienced this, and this person specifically, being a neurosurgeon, could probably explain it in a more elaborate way. And in fact, it was a surprising concept that when he was explaining his afterlife experience, he said that whatever energy I felt, he was naming it as Om. And although he's not from this faith, you could say, or from this cultural this thing, but he still called it Om. And what he talked about was that when he came back to life, he so he gained a tremendous amount of knowledge about universe. When that's what he talks about, that he everything was like, basically he was one with the universe. That's what he's trying to explain, and he could explain, he feels he understood everything. But when he came back to life, it took a while to explain that in language, because he said that I experienced that, but now when I've come back into my mind and my body, it is a small vessel. So although I've seen all of that, I cannot bring it back into these containers. So
Right.
it's difficult to express now that I'm back to life.
Right.
But I could really connect with all of those concepts with what we discuss in these sessions, right? So it was good to.
Yeah. In fact, that is what Ananji also pointed out initially, that the concept of that power is that infinitude is beyond the scope of our mind and intellect. And when in the state of death that he is talking about, or the mind and intellect is not there. It's a pure experience only, and that experience, it is very difficult to explain it through the mind and intellect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a question already in the chat box.
There is no. There's no question as such.
Actionless in actions, sir, for your explanations.
Yeah, sir, thank you, sir, for your. I think she is thanked for the explanation.
Oh,
yeah, okay. Right. Yeah, okay. So I think if there is anything more,